I'm joining with Andy Schragle and Kathleen Powell, and they can probably introduce themselves a little bit, but I'm just really interested in your direct experience with this, looking at the golem and your thoughts. You're both very deeply embedded in psychology field, psychotherapy, healing modalities, and it's good to hear from you, and then maybe get some ideas. How do we, if we were to try to move this type of therapy program, integrate it or support those that might want to integrate it, how could we do that? So I guess I'll let you guys each start a little bit about your background and then start asking you questions.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to start,
Yeah.
Kathleen?
Sure. I guess I've been on a spiritual path since I was a teenager. I was raised as a Catholic and with all the Catholic school attendance, etc. But I always knew that I was called to something that would deepen my experience with the dance within. And so I really did the gamut. So just to throw that out, I mean, I was in San Francisco during the time of Haight-Ashbury. I definitely became a devotee of astrology. I can read your tarot cards. I threw the runes. I just really did the circuit. And I loved mystical Christianity. I bounced into Buddhism, really got a lot from that. I was in an ashram for a while. I was serious, as well as very much doing my own therapy. I've really logged more therapy hours than Woody Allen at this point. And I did not work in the field until 25 years ago, but that was always just a part of the sensibility. You don't live in New York City too long without meeting everybody in the world who's also doing therapy. But came to the course in the 80s, and well, I did know very clearly that this was a very different route, and just embraced it. Always, as I said, I was always looking for that dance, the dance of the soul, and I felt that was a major dance step for me. Did go back to graduate school 23 years ago. I've had a practice as a psychotherapist since, I have to think, 1991. And yeah, that's been alive and well. Came to Joining in Light during COVID. I had just finished reading or rereading the psychotherapy pamphlet, and I was looking for something that would really elaborate on the pamphlet. And that's how I came across Cay and Joining in Light. And they were doing what were you doing? You were exploring the pamphlet, Psychotherapy, Purpose, Practice. And as I heard Cay speak about the principles, and how I just knew that there was so much more with the study and what was going on at Joining in Light. So here I am. I came down to Joining in Light. It was actually, Kay, it's almost 2 years ago, because it was the end of June, and I was there for 3 months doing the 90-day program. And I had been, prior to that, working on the chapter 20 with Laura. And then down at the center, Kay and I were looking at spiritual psychotherapy.
Yeah, we actually, yeah. And
Yeah.
Kathleen has shared a lot on that from her perspective of psychotherapy and how, how she found it when she looked at it compared to other modalities in her experience, which I hope she'll share some more of today. But that kind of gives you a little bit of idea how she came to this. And then you, Andy, you want to?
Oh, well, I'm really happy to be here and kind of to learn from both of you. My journey started in early childhood. I got really into music and I had a mystical experience, and kind of the world fell away. I just felt this boundless love and stillness, and this kind of analytical part of my mind tried everything it could do to replicate that. So as a kid, I started meditating, just trying and trying and trying. And I really, couldn't, the more I tried, the more it seemed to kind of get farther and farther away. That really lit a fire under me to study psychology. I thought that was kind of the route. And so I went to college to study psychology and music composition. So kind of the marriage of both of those. And I still had this strong desire at the time to really know who I am. And I started hearing, I would wake up in the morning and I'd start hearing A Course in Miracles, like a whisper. And I would, I'd just ignore it. This went on for about 6 months. And I was writing kind of a composition in our kind of the middle of our campus, and kind of was directed to 3 different groups that said, course, it's a miracle. And then I said, oh my God, I got to go buy that, whatever it is. I had this sense it was a book. So I went and bought it, and I devoured it, had no idea what I was reading, and just felt extreme rage most of the time. So there's frustration, there's rage. But I stuck with it. And so I think what I have kind of experienced in my life is this walking through polarity as kind of this mystic to kind of contemporary psychologist. And it's been a very interesting tightrope. I went to graduate school, a PhD in psychology, and then went on to specialize in neuropsychology. But there, and in that, there had kind of continued to be this longing in my heart, like I'm really not getting the point here. And, I think over a period of time, there's kind of this surrender into knowing that probably my way is not the best. As I've studied and studied, I've accomplished, I have everything I want, and I'm still unhappy. And there was really this moment of surrender. It was very interesting. I heard this voice in my head, and it said, make the commitment and all the means will be provided to you. Wow. And so I said, heck with it. All right. Whatever this is, I'm committing to it. And there's a sense that I needed to get to know what this voice was. Because I heard it all as a child. I'd hear it interspersed throughout many things throughout my life. It was a very familiar voice, very gentle, very loving. But it wasn't the primary voice. And I had this feeling like I needed to make this the primary voice. And so there was this moment of like, okay, I'm kind of letting go, whatever, show me. And then that's when all Cay stuff started to appear. I heard search joining in light in YouTube. I had no idea what that was. And then Cay's, devotional group came up, and it was all about strengthening the connection to that voice. Started, joining sessions, just loved it, and felt this thing that I had been longing for, this connection, this indelible and intrinsic love that never goes away. And I felt kind of like I was coming home to this sense that, we're all doing this together, the importance of joining, things like that. All of things were antithetical to my practice prior to. Do it together, reason through it. Thoughts are incredibly powerful. I think, therefore I am. And so I'm just so grateful to have found both of you in that respect.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I had sort of the two-sided, academic background, and then, high technology and all these kinds of things. And I had to come around and wake up a little bit, but you're in a really high analytical, you're in, I forget, neurology department or neurosurgery.
Yeah. Neurology. Yeah, neurology.
Wow.
How'd I get
Very
here?
high. What?
How'd I get here? I have no idea.
I know, but and forensic psychology too, of course, which is really high analytical, right? But it's interesting. So we all come from these really beautifully diverse, and then there's just something missing, like seemingly having everything, like career-wise, or that, I could probably always figure out a way to want more, and I did. I wanted to be like president of a company and all these kinds of things, and saw that wasn't working. So I really appreciate you both coming in, especially since we've been kind of looking at this spiritual psychotherapy perspective, and get your experience as you've been looking, in these light circles, which I should explain. These light circles are beings come together to look deeply from a whole perspective, a perspective of wholeness, to look inside and see when they have an upset, what is contributing to that. And that's all we do, is we just come together and look inside from a whole perspective. Andy calls it the voice, but it's the voice of wholeness, of wisdom that everyone has, that we can choose to listen to or not. So I just want maybe if you can share your experience of doing that. And we've talked about this golem thing, that there's something down there that actually wants that upset, and your experience of discovering that. And, if you would share a little bit about that and how it might have changed your view when you see that.
Yeah, I'm happy to share.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really surprised at, one, from kind of my standpoint of training, and again, there's a lot of variability to this, but typically from my understanding, the therapeutic model, takes time. It is sometimes focused on the past, and many times focused on, outcome. And this technique or process has been precise, and the effects have been immediate, which has been absolutely fascinating to me, kind of coming from my perspective. But the process for me, and it's also very personal and centered to, exactly what you need. And a lot of times, you wouldn't know that, without joining with the voice for wholeness. And so personally for me, a lot has come up around control. I know we all have issues with control, but for me, that has come front and center. And what it is being taken down in a very gentle and easy way to kind of be shown how you are exerting control kind of on a constant basis and how that's serving as a block to love's presence now. And so looking at that, and then what has been fascinating is looking at all the secondary gain that I associate with control. Control provides safety. In some sense, control provides love, specialness, security, all of these things. And so how I've kind of wound control and all these things up in like a yarn ball and just got it all knotted up. And this process is kind of to gently look at the knot, kind of then to kind of go under it to see just how much you want the knot. You want the block. And that has been the most enlightening process for me. Cay kind of talks about the golem. I've seen kind of the puppeteer where you go down and there's this guy kind of with this, and you're always on the strings, keeping you kind of within the confines of your your perceived reality, but never can go outside of it, kind of keeping you there. And looking at the desire for control and kind of releasing it, then you see what's underneath it. It's just blocking pure, unadulterated love. And you kind of realize then you kind of just a gentle chuckle as to why was I doing that? and it can be, you then have to check in and say, hey, did we get all of this? And maybe there are a couple rounds that it takes to kind of go back through it, but it can be gone that quickly. It really depends on the willingness. And so it's just so exciting and empowering to me.
Thanks, Andy. That's a good description.
Yeah.
The surprise at finding that we really are liking the hell.
Yeah. Completely. Yeah. Yeah.
So Kathleen, do you want to share your experience with it as well?
Yeah. I mean, I would mirror many of the things that Andy just shared. I think for me, the big shock that fully was realized when I came down to the center and we were doing the light circles twice a day was the awareness of how much I wanted to stay stuck in my chains. And that became crystal clear every time we would sit down and join. And the relishing part was also, I have to say, it was a mystery to me. I mean, after years and years and years of my own personal therapy, I never really had the quote tastiness, the sheer joy of feeling how much I wanted those chains. And you can look at the chains, they come in many forms, but every time we would look at a desire and see how much that desire played out in such a way that it was, as I said, it was very tasty. And it was something that was so strong, such a stronghold. And when we would begin the relishing, the understanding of how much we really just loved whatever the desire was that we were looking at, I remember feeling excited and surprised by that actual physical feeling of movement. I could feel it loosening up. And that was really interesting. sometimes when whoever was leading would talk about the golem and just feeling the grit and being able, you'd get to that spot of like, oh yeah, okay, it is so desired, and it seems so counterintuitive that how could this thing that's keeping me in chains be a completely desired and almost revered state of mind and attitude. And I think the light circle joinings, that just really did shine that a whole new ability and attitude and perspective that this could actually, the chains could be loosened and they could be cast aside. And as Andy said, it was the willingness, just feeling that, but it was also the power of all of us in the room that, for me, I know made the shift possible. And it was always kind of astounding when you would feel that movement, but it was a gentle movement, and then sometimes not so gentle, because you could feel an opening and a the words coming right now is a sense of cast off. It could be left aside. You did not have to carry the chains, and it kept going. That was also an interesting part of the light circles for me, that the effect would keep going throughout the day, throughout the week, forever and ever. Yeah. The power of being in the circle and feeling the mind join, the soul join, and how it was possible to wash away certain parts that had been stuck. I want to say for lifetimes, and there was a scouring process that wasn't even uncomfortable. It was light. And I'm so grateful, very grateful.
Well, it's been really beautiful to join with you on this, because I do remember that you wanted to look at something. The funny thing is, once we've looked at it, you can't even remember what it was, but I know you wanted to look at something that was a lifetime pattern that you tried all kinds of ways to release. And then somehow you saw it. You saw how you were choosing it. I remember that part. Was that the cactus story? Or I don't know if you even remember what that was.
I remember, yeah, you and I were joining. It was early in the morning. I remember that. But I literally can't remember the desire. Yeah. And it was a megawatt desire. And it was something that was, it was a haunting for my life, but I really can't recall what it was at this point. But the cactus did appear. And I'm almost forgetting the cactus story, which might be a good thing.
Yeah, they start to go. It seems to me it might have been about something with your role with your family or something.
Oh, yeah.
That was really endemic, because we get embedded, like imprinted with these ideas about our family and family relationships and live out of that, which we all know that's what therapy's for. But I remember you looking at something like that.
Probably my yes. Now it comes back. I mean, just the oldest child must be family therapist, must be the helper, must be second mother, and yes, pleasure
feels
and
like,
pain with that one.
I feel like that washed out pretty much through that look.
Yeah, it
You
there's
know?
more of a choice now. I think
Mm,
before that there was a complete compulsion. It was that there was no question. You know, now it's much more of a choice. I mean, you know, that now I do it with intention rather than the second nature compulsion.
yeah, like Andy's saying, you're kind of, it takes you off the strings, but you don't know you're on the strings until you look.
Yes, yes,
You know, I didn't see
yes.
I was on the strings through my desire to have an experience of being on strings for whatever, you know, whether it's control, out of control, whatever experience I was having. I just, until really this looking, I had no idea that I was just wanting it more than anything. You know, it was like a treasure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And to me, it was very illuminating to see and have that almost expressed, the wanting, how badly I would complain out here. This is horrible. This is terrible. It's happening. And then look down and say, no, I'm wanting every bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very humbling.
Mm-hmm.
The cactus story is a good one. If you remember any of it, that's a really good one where you kind of saw yourself. I don't even remember the topic anymore. These things just go when they go. You're
Right,
done with it. But you saw the whole picture. You saw that you had two parts, right? The good cat.
right. There, yeah, the good Kathleen and the bad Kathleen. And the good Kathleen saw herself impaled on the cactus. And then the bad Kathleen was sort of on the side chuckling because she was the one who pushed the good Kathleen up there on the cactus to be impaled and to feel every prickly piece of those cactus stingers going inside and crippling pain, and up there on the cactus cross. And I orchestrated the whole scene, the so-called bad Kathleen. And I do remember that day, that morning that we were joining, and that image came to mind, and it was palpable on every possible level because I was so aware that this was all my own doing, and that the bad Kathleen was also, you know, kind of wringing her hands in delight, but also was very aware that she wrote the script. And she starred in the movie, and and she was the producer, so you know, had all the things going. So it was an interesting visual to see that we've got the pleasure and pain business all mixed up, but we are truly writing our script.
Wow, that's deep to see. But it's happiness. You'd think it would not be happiness to see that we're the orchestrators of it, but it's the
Yeah,
greatest, most resistance is just against, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. The greatest resistance is against seeing that one thing that we're orchestrating all of it.
yeah, yeah.
You know, because because you and I talked about this, like we were talking about, you were looking for some way to speed things up in your office, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because of that intractability seemingly of the story after months and months, you know, when beings would come in and they were, is so steeped in that, like, how can you make any headway?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we talked about too, you know, how has this impacted your thoughts about working with people, seeing that it's all self-orchestrated?
Hmm. how has it impacted? You know, the word despair is coming up. And I'm just going to, you know, that there was this sense, it could be my despair, it could be their despair, that you want to be as helpful as possible, but with that other perspective that we are all writing our own script. It sort of takes the stuffings from the old paradigm, you know, like I'm going to come in as the helper, the therapist. I'm going to patch you up, you know. And this was a complete turnaround from that. I mean, I had to let go of some roles that I was playing, and even to be aware that they might be seeing their therapist in a certain way too. Oh, you're going to, quote, heal me. And so some, you know, to be radically honest here, there was sort of that despair on my part of letting that go. You know, I'm not the mover and the shaker here. You know, I'm journeying with you on this road toward healing. And I have to say, I don't exactly share this in my practice, but I've been doing this for a long time, that I pray before my sessions, and I do always invite Holy Spirit in. But I would say, since working with the material from Jesus, a New Covenant, that there is much more of a letting go on my part of what to say next. And I think from the light circles, that has helped me quote, hear better. But I still have a long way to go.
Andy, you have any comment on that? You're more forensic psychology, but you know, any of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I again feel like a young Padawan here compared to you here, but I kind of hear constantly repurpose. What's the purpose now?
Yeah.
Prior to, it was all about me. Prior to, it was about, you know, as Kathleen said, my role as the expert, and there's a big self-concept around that. And now the repurposing is kind of this gentle falling away of that, with the need to be clueless, cared free, and cared for.
That's beautiful.
And so, you know, what that means to me is just this kind of open willingness to not have any idea what anything is about, and, you know, follow. I you know, am not perfect at that by any means, but I feel with this collaboration with you two and this group, is that the willingness and the signs and symbols of the fruits of that are becoming much more realized. And so, you know, when I see, you know, patients at the Children's Hospital who are sick, and suffering with epilepsy, which is the kind of the primary population I serve.
Mm.
It's, what's this for? What's the best?
Yes.
How can we use this to heal the mind? What do
Yeah.
I need to know? Use me to facilitate that. And again, some days I'm better at it than others, or some moments. And there is the willingness to kind of completely come back. There's this GPS or constant recalibration to that,
Yeah.
which I'm starting to notice is very important to kind of stay in the flow. Because I want to get out of it very often. And I think that's what's coming up in the light circles a lot, is this rage about being told what to do and following, and giving up this identity of the expert and things like that. So as you were saying, Kathleen, there is a bit of despair and kind of letting go of all the things that I thought were valuable at one time, and that I had worked or seemingly devoted so much of my life to achieving and accomplishing, because I felt like they were going to bring the secondary gain sometime in the future, which hasn't actually happened yet. And so now it's just kind of a show me, versus before it was let me think about all the dynamics related to all the many systems in which you're nested in, and understand your cognitive strengths and weaknesses. Let me think and see how you're fitting within the context of your family, and then your medical condition. And then I will come and try to understand you better, and give you recommendations for the future. I am exhausted.
I
And
just
so,
have to throw out to you that it's gotten to the point now for me that the Holy Spirit literally writes the treatment plan. So, so
that's
so
beautiful.
that just has lightened the load, so to speak.
Well, I'm following your lead, Kathleen.
Yeah, I wish the Holy Spirit would write my case notes, but that's maybe one day.
One day.
You will, you ask them.
Yeah.
But I just want to
Yeah.
mention, because some beings may watch this not familiar, but we're just talking about the voice of wholeness. And,
Yes.
within that, everyone can access this wisdom voice that kind of
Yeah.
knows what the deal is. We can hide it so much in unawareness, but there's a part of us that really knows what's going on down there, and
Yeah.
then can kind of guide us back to out of the insanity of choosing experiences that are really horrific a lot of times, control or whatever's appearing. Jung talked about it, like if you don't do your inner work, phobias will appear, and accidents. He even said accidents would appear. I thought
Sure.
that he kind of got the gig. He kind
Mhm.
of saw the whole thing, that if you don't do your inner work, you're kind of asking for it on the surface.
Mhm.
That's what I got. I mean, I didn't see that quote until they showed me that on the forum. But as soon as I realized that that is the gig, that I unsubconsciously, that just put me on a mission. I got to see what's under there and clear that out. Otherwise, I'm slamming myself up against all kinds of accidents and illness and problems and fights out in the world and whatever else is appearing. I don't know. It became urgent for me.
Mhm.
To clear that out, a priority to clear those decks out. But it's interesting too. I wanted to talk to you a little bit because I went out to one of the psychotherapy programs. John Shannon was really great about posting and making a run at. It's been spectacular, them sharing all these young quotes, and it looks like, I don't know, you never hear about Freud, but Fromm, and how there are pieces of all of this there in but the part I was asking about is, oh my God, you're talking about the Holy Spirit. I'd talk about it as Jesus, whatever this voice of wholeness is. How would we, I'm just kind of dumbfounded, how would we ever, if we were to kind of try to share this and extend this into the therapy fields, how do you talk about this? You can find so many beings that, okay, I get the Holy Spirit thing, but really, anybody can do this. I'm never coaching in prison. I didn't talk about the Holy Spirit at all, actually, or Jesus or anything. It was just, there was a light within that we shared. They got it immediately. Like, no spirituality, no, no, there was no spiritual. I mean, if somebody believed in God, they believed in it first. I didn't bring it up, they had to bring it up first, then I would talk about it. So I just would like to hear your perspective on that. Is that gonna, there's so much charge around the God idea and the Jesus idea and the
Hmm. Yeah, okay. I know what you mean about the charge around the Jesus idea. I have to say, though, in my own practice, I don't feel that there's a lot of charge around the God idea. The God idea, or if you use that expression, the voice for wholeness, the universe, I feel that's at least my client base is, they've been very receptive to that. I have to say, many people in my practice are, they come to me because of spiritual linkages, and I'm kind of known for working with that modality. So, I don't find it to be an issue.
good to know.
Yeah, it's, and I don't know if that would be everybody's experience, but I haven't found it to be a block. I'm not about to say things though, like, well, Jesus said, Jesus said, maybe don't divorce your husband. I'm not going there, but I think we all want that spiritual, transcendent connection, and doesn't matter what we really call it. We're looking for the love connection, the love boat, to be embraced by that which is.
Thanks, Kathleen. That's helpful. Yeah, to hear.
Mm.
And in general, it's pretty well, even on the psychoanalysis form, they just seemed interested in exploring it. There was some charge, okay, this is God, and this is what Jung believed about it. And we could get I'd love to get in a deeper conversation with some of them about exactly what they think the ego is. Because that was the other area. But I want to hear what Andy has to say. And then I would like to talk about ideas about what the ego is, and just hear from you guys from the, kind of modern psychology perspective.
Yeah, I think what comes to me is oftentimes it's important for the person you're working with to kind of identify, what they'd like to call this unifying presence. Could be pink elephant, God, universe, whatever.
Yeah.
As long
Billy
as it's
Bob.
embodying this core
Right.
identity of,
Yes. Yes.
purity and, love, I don't think it matters. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
this is bringing an interesting thing in my mind, so I want to ask you guys about it. But I really wouldn't have seen, even looking as much as I did, how this denies the experience of love. Going down to the Golem and seeing how I wanted this experience. If I looked from it inside of that, I really didn't see that it denies like an experience of love. And I'm wondering, were you aware that that was denying you love, that choice that was being made subconsciously? It's
No.
interesting.
I'm just holding on to all that secondary gain. I thought it was
Yes.
what my life was being taken away. Essentially, it, you know,
Right.
it can be just with the looking. I mean, you're looking back, but kind of looking at all the energetics that are coming up. It's like I'm being, you know, it's just chaos. You're taking
Yes.
away something that's very important.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And just to clarify, because I know there is some use of the word of secondary gain, in some fields of psychology. Is that this is the one I'm using, like a unseen benefit, perceived benefit? Is that the same that's used in psychological or practice? The way we're used to
Yes.
secondary gain? Okay. So that's pretty pervasive in terms of that's pervasive. Okay. So, because I'm also checking out within the psychoanalyst forum, the language too, as well, in terms of the communication is how do we even talk about this? You know, because until I didn't even know how to really talk about it, but it wasn't until I saw it. I saw that I wanted these things, you know? It's like, how do you talk about it? Because in what else can you equate it to in psychology? You know, because it's, look, I chose this. This is the ultimate, buck stops here. And really, till I saw how much I wanted it, but even in the wanting of it, and letting that fully express into awareness, I wasn't aware how much I was blocking love, that infinite love from my awareness in it. You know, so that's why I'm really interested. You know, could you make that connection? I don't know if you can.
Yeah, from my
You know,
personal
if you,
experience and coming as an, you know, an outsider, I thought y'all were crazy about this. I'm wanting this, like I cannot see it, you
Yeah.
know, but show
Yeah.
it to me.
Yeah. Right.
Boy,
Yeah.
I was
Got
proven
it.
wrong. But,
Yeah.
you know, from that outsider perspective, I was like, how could I actually want this?
Yeah.
It made no sense to my, you know, conscious mind. And of
Mhm.
course, that was the defense there. But
so what got you to the point that you were willing, because you have to hang in there, because this makes the ego really mad,
Mhm.
really angry, because it's trying to protect that seeing, right? You know, what got you through it to finally go, I'm going to just see if there is something down there? What do you think let the light go on to see, oh, I do want this?
yeah, I don't know if the stars aligned for me, but it was really just that surrender moment. You know, it's like my way is not working anymore.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
there is another way. I think it's ridiculous, but I'm going to investigate further and be
Mhm.
shown,
Mhm.
and be open. And
Mhm.
that's what did it.
Mhm. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Did you, but
Mhm.
you had an openness to looking too, Kathleen, but did it take a while for you before you actually started seeing Gollum down there? That's the impression I get for a lot of beings. You got to really stay. It's like riding a bike. You got to stay with it before you see.
Yeah. When I used to watch the light circles, before I went to the center, I wasn't really sure what was going on at first. You know, um, people were talking about their experience, and you were guiding them about, to see how much this is wanted. And I too was kind of like, what is happening? I was curious, but I didn't quite get the process. And have to say, I don't think I got the process till I actually went to the center. But when I did, there was no mistaking. This was so powerful, but it was also, there was so much compassion there as we all worked together. And I did not feel any judgment. It was this sense that we are joining with purpose. And I remember after some of the light circles, and we were baking it out with the relishing, as you would say, I definitely recall that sense of peace when the movement would start. And I don't believe I ever really consciously saw how I was blocking the love either. I wouldn't have phrased it that way. I didn't know that, oh my goodness, there are, oceans of love just waiting for you to swim in. But hey, you've blocked the whole thing with whatever you're desiring, whatever you're hating, whatever you want to keep as in your own domain, what I call my chains. But I don't think I saw that there was truly infinite love at your beck and call. That was the big surprise,
Wow.
And then when, you'd have a moment and it was kind of like, oh, wow. Yeah. And then time would stop. And that was always so revelatory in a certain way, that you don't have to be trapped, that there can be this infusion of fullness.
Wow.
Complete love. And that he was there. That Jesus had the hand open all the time. Just didn't want to take it.
Wow. The light, is welcoming us.
Yeah.
That wholeness, welcome. It's a welcome mat. But yeah,
Right.
I didn't see that either. But I just want to say, because we didn't talk about how long you guys have, I'd love to stay on a few more minutes, let Andy, share, and then talk about maybe our next steps, if you're willing, because it's so beautiful. Thank you. Do you both have a little bit of spaciousness still to continue a little bit?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Beautiful.
Yeah. Sorry, I was so wrapped up in what Kathleen was saying. So beautiful. I've forgotten the question.
Oh, we got to go back to the question now. But really, kind of this thing of not getting it at first, and then the block, seeing that there was love. I didn't know how your process kind of got to the point where you finally, you said it was a moment of opening, but is there anything else you discovered?
Yeah, I have been such a curious person my whole life. And curiosity for me is, I've always wondered when it's going to kill the cat, because I was just always into things, wanting to figure it out. And I heard very clearly, it's time to explore the final frontier. And hand came out and grabbed the hand, and we just went forward. And again, it's wholeness is the welcome mat. And I felt that, just this big blanket of love and acceptance. And so I said, okay, let's go. And, as Kathleen said, there's just been a lot of things that have come up that have been like, oh, that's really interesting. And then kind of taking a step back, and almost from this scientific standpoint, without judgment, just kind of like, oh, I wonder how that's going to play out. because at the beginning for me, maybe the first month of these has just been unadulterated rage. And so experiencing, I'll have these images of me just like almost exploding out, these sonic booms just exploding out, and so angry, and just hearing, look at all the tension and work that you're that you're doing to keep this show going. And then we look at it, there's a gentle melting away of that. So it has been like this curiosity labyrinth where there's been more and more trust. Oh, okay, I'm not completely destroyed and looking at all this rage. Let's go a little deeper. Okay, next time deeper. Show me more. Show me more. Okay, I'm ready. Show me more. I trust you. And getting into some pretty deep things, things that I wouldn't want to look at by myself. And then there's more trust, and then you feel it deeper. And then, as Kathleen was saying, there's this, I can't describe it, there's this weird kind of energetic pulse to this experience. It's like something is happening and I can't understand, I'm not going to try to understand it, but there is a physical manifestation of the kind of the healing that's going on underneath. And it's kind of an interesting complement or control to say, hey, okay, something's happening here. So with more and more of the looking, there's been more and more kind of the images of removing the blocks and how I'm actively designing and creating the structures to keep the light out. In one light circle, I had this experience where I was Sisyphus pushing up this enormous boulder and just going and going, and the loving voice said, look at how much tension and energy you're putting into being you right now. I could just take this. Said, no, get the hell out of here. Just all this rage. And then it ended with, are you ready to see this differently? And I said, absolutely, I'm so tired. And he said, great, because peace is down the mountain. So he dropped the boulder and just headed down. And it was once there's that acceptance, as Kathleen said, something just opens up. And it's you can't really describe it. It goes beyond the analytical mind. It is an experience, and it's like a coming home versus additive process. And it's just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Wow, I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's very true. It's coming home. And so many things I appreciate about you both, just so blessed. Even I'm so touched by the psychotherapists, they've come in and really shared so much in their perspectives. It's beautiful. But what I really appreciate too about what your stick-to-itiveness, because the ego, and what I call the ego, is going to rage. It doesn't want this secret. It doesn't want this secret revealed. It's like it's a secret to see that we're pulling the strings.
Yeah.
So the fact that you just kept willing to look under the rage, and how that's a deflection. The anger is a deflection. These are distractions not to look unsparingly. And you stayed in there. It's just, we got to hold each other to the shoulder so that we're not afraid to look at any of this. That's my feeling. You ultimately see that nothing freaking happens. It's a lot. It's like smoke coming up and burning flames, and you're going to be incinerated in a night. It's okay. We've talked about some things. I'm assuming it's okay, to share these things that you share with me. Like, I can clip it out if you don't, but like annihilation, you said you were looking at that, decided to look under it.
Yeah, it was like the Wizard of Oz. Just pulled the curtain up and like, just all hot air.
Yeah, it seems so real. Go ahead, Andy.
Oh no, I was just going to say, but there was such an addiction to relishing the experience of the annihilation, and like wanting to stay with it, and just heard, nope, drop. You have to go underneath it, or else we're going to
Mhm.
stay here for a while. So yeah, there's just this letting go, which I think is really interesting. And this, I guess the looking and the experience that has been hard for me is letting go of the secondary gain.
Mhm. Sure.
You know, it's not really, you know, the rage, that's great. And I guess I feel great for it. But then underneath it, there is, you know, all the reasons why I love it, and
Oh,
how much I want to hold on to it. But knowing that I am here for a reason, and that I can't stop there. I have to keep going.
mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a profound seeing to see that we think heaven is in keeping all that angst and pain and phobias and whatever's under there, that we think heaven's in it. Peace
Mhm.
or power or happiness, or it's really profound. It really is. But it's like you're saying, once you see that you can't actually get peace or power or happiness or love, it's an idea, right? That can be gotten that way. And then once we look at it from a whole perspective and going, okay, there's no way I can actually get peace out of whatever it is, control or annihilation. But that's humbling for me. That was humbling for me to see, that I thought, what did I think? Oh, I have to ask because I don't remember. But I looked at annihilation. Oh, I'm here, and I thought it was happiness to be annihilated.
Mm. Mm.
You know, it's like, oh, that's humbling. Or, you
I
know,
was hearing a lot about, like, this is what you want to rest finally. This means rest to you.
annihilation means yes.
I can finally
Uh-huh.
rest.
Uh-huh.
If I'm, that's
Uh-huh.
why I had to get to the point of saying, look, I'm just going to let myself blow up and get over with, and just see what happens. Cause it's always a threat. I didn't see how many threats I was hanging over my own head, but never questioned. Why do I feel like constant anxiety? Why do I feel this constant threat in the world everywhere looking over my shoulder? I really didn't see that before this. Like, had no idea I was under constant threat. But then then you have to laugh because you see, oh, I did that to myself.
Mhm.
But have you gotten to the laughing part yet, where you see it's pretty? I think it's pretty. Yeah, you were laughing, seeing it's pretty hilarious. Both of you, I think Andy and Kathleen, you were laughing when you saw that cactus.
Yeah. But even when you bring that up, I'm even thinking that I welcomed the laughter, but at the same time, there was a sense of I'm losing my best friend. I love that show. I love that show, believing that I was just this tiny little itsy bitsy puny thing with no power. And then wait a minute, you've got some power. You've got a lot of power, and it's this power that is creating this universe, which you really choose to continue along with. So yeah.
I'm losing my best friend. That's so true. We just think Elm is losing our best friend. That
Right.
is humbling.
Yeah.
Suffering, we are losing our best friend. It's humbling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pain.
Yeah.
Seeing that
Yeah.
pain, I really loved pain. Love every time I have pain, I look under it and just see how much it's wanted. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, that's humbling. But it's the reversal. I'm just happy talking about it because you just get happy.
Mhm.
You realize you don't have to choose it anymore. So do you feel more empowered that you don't have to choose it?
Most of the time.
Yes.
That's the honest truth.
Yes.
Most of the time, but not all of the time. And
I,
it's for some reason I want to say the wayward child within
yes.
just wants to keep pumping out the old script.
Yes. Oh my God.
I, yeah, it's just
Yes. Even when we see it, that is yes, the wayward child likes being a, gee, do I relish being a wayward child and doing my own thing and controlling and pulling the strings? And then you hear from that infinite voice, yes, you do. And
Damn straight. Yeah.
that's right.
Absolutely.
And complaining about it. On the surface,
Yeah.
this is horrible.
Right.
This is happening to me. I don't know why the world or people are screwing me.
Right. Well, then there's that whole warehouse of yummy, yummy, yummy. Why are they screwing me? Oh, wow. Sympathy, pity. Woohoo. That's a whole other treasure trove, you know, that we can go in and just, oh, we can hang in that warehouse for years and years. It's just so delicious. Mm-hmm.
So at some point too, maybe because I'd love to keep going. This is just so fabulous, you know, because I want to talk to you guys too about the storyline. Because Kathleen, that's the first thing we talked about when we talked about this for spiritual psychotherapy, and we're going, that storyline is such a big part of this in terms of somebody coming in and they want to tell the story.
Right.
I mean, but I'm not saying never tell the story, but you know, the precision of this, like it just cuts through all of that. But it just seems like beings are so used to that part being part of therapy. So it feels helpful to kind of talk about that a bit, and maybe some of your experience. Do you use this to kind of cut past that story to what's really happening?
Oh, well, I'm not going to say that that's an easy process because there, I think folks I've worked with for a longer amount of time, and they know me, I know them, I know their stories. It's a lot easier to segue into, let's look at this differently, you know, without all the story intruding. But I'm not going to say I do that with brand new folks. I don't think it would be, I don't know. I'm not sure I know the technique on that one because,
It's kind of interesting thing to look at. It's a
oh,
real
it is.
thing to look at for sure. It's an interesting, because also our weddedness to stories too. Like, you know, what I love about everything you told me about psychotherapy or psychoanalysis is that the commitment, at least it used to be, to actually look within. Okay, what's my play here? Where am I in
Mm-hmm.
the game? You know,
Mm-hmm.
therapy, the therapist goes to therapy first,
Yeah, man.
right? And then willingness will let me look inside and see what game I'm playing in before I actually, you know, try to take the boulder out of my brother's eye, kind of thing. I'd love to talk to you. I don't know if you have any comments
Yeah.
on that, Andy, and then we'll if you guys are open, we'll go for another session to really talk about some ideas about how we might move this forward into spiritual psychotherapy or psychotherapy, or you know, any kind of healing modality, because it's powerful.
It's very powerful.
I don't have much to add. Everything I do is wedded in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
me
know,
too.
taking histories and everything, you know, performance is based on past, you know, occurrences.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think it's a new paradigm.
It
Yeah.
is. Oh, I'm getting rocked
Yep.
on just seeing. Really, it's just an exploration of all those beliefs about what the past really controls, because if we're choosing all of it, you know, we're keeping all the past locked in play. But if we look at that differently, our whole perspective on the world changes. It's just a whole different way of seeing things.
Yes. Yes.
Whole different way. you know,
Yeah.
and I've mentioned this too about, that's why I really wanted to understand, and I don't know if there's a place for this, but in the healing modalities that I've been involved in, neuro-linguistic programming, that thing, I know anybody can argue with it, but boy, it's powerful. It has certain presuppositions. Here's our presupposition. One of them is the map is not the territory.
Mm,
So, like, the story is not the it that's happening. And that's
mhm.
essentially what we're talking about. We think here's the here's the map, you know, and it looks like you're going this way and you're telling a story about it, but it's that underlying territory that's really under there in this subconscious content that is so obscured. That's one thing I have learned from this. I think I can go as much as I want into the story up here, but that voice for wholeness would laser in on something I would never get that was
Yes.
ever.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you know, it's a story about my mother and whatever. And then I could hear from the inner voice, no, it's control. This is all about desire for experience of control. It's like a
Mhm.
laser beam, so
Mhm.
far beyond that, you know, storyline to get to the point. Here's the point of it. You relishing an experience of trying to be in control. It's yeah, it's
Yeah.
powerful, but it's humbling and it saves time because it's so right to the point. So yeah, I'd love to spend some more time talking to you, but guys, about that and just hearing, you know, your thoughts again. And I'm going to try and see if I can get those on the wisdom from the psychoanalysis forum, you know, to really start talking about, okay, if we were, how would we support this moving into more of a therapeutic modality to be used, you know, for those that are
Mhm.
interested in it. But my first invitation is always come and have a direct experience of it.
Mhm.
And invite. And the hilarious thing about this, when I brought this to therapists, they've told me flat out, I don't want to go this deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't want to look that deeply. It's like, you know, and then I saw that quote from Jung, you know, you got to get in there and do this work. That's my
Mhm.
take home from them. And but to
Mhm.
hear a therapist that's not willing to actually go deeper in their mind to see this play, wow, how can you help anybody, really? Actually, I don't know. Maybe I'm being arrogant and saying that. I don't know. But that's what I feel, it's part of it, that the healer has to become the healed,
Sure. The
right?
unhealed healer. Yes.
Unhealed healer. And again,
Yeah.
that's why I keep going psychotherapy. If I feel like there's a drive to be healed, I don't know, could be me. But I
No.
feel like that modality has a lot to add to this because you're used to looking at that so unconscious content.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a thought, Kathleen.
Yeah. To me, there's also, though, another dimension to what you're saying, and if we were to look at the unconscious as having like 12 basements, you know, it's probably not as if those folks don't want to look. You know, I mean, I warn all my friends, if ask your therapist if they've been in therapy themselves. If they say no, I say run the other way, you know. So I mean, that's just me, but I think with what we're talking about, it's this is sort of the unconscious on in the 12th basement, you
Yes, it is.
know. So there's I'm hearing the word readiness, and I
That's a
think
good point.
some folks just ain't there, you know.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm level for, you know, basement 2, and that'll pass, that'll get me by in this lifetime. But it's, you know, the willingness to want to go down to the down and dirty, and, you know, the
Yep.
bottom floor. And I I don't know, you know, somebody has to be at that place at
Yes.
that time.
Yeah.
I find that the clients that that the ones who have done everything, And then they show up at my door and they're at that place of, I don't care what it takes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I just want freaking behavioral change from the deepest level. And then it's like, okay, let's go. But, you know, if they're not there yet and they just really kind of want, you know, endorsement for the pity party. And that's a stage. That's a stage. It's not forever, because I think after people have a bout of therapy with the pity party and they might leave for a while, and then they're saying, well, gee whiz, I still feel I still feel terrible. So, hey, it's all where somebody is
That's a
on
good
their
point.
journey.
Well, and then Andy said the same thing, and it was for me too. When I got to the point of saying, this is not working.
Yeah.
My life is not working. I have to have another way to see it.
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah.
became a must, because you're hearing Andy going, and I was rageful for, you know, but the ego usually runs, you know, and once it's like, we talk about it like a dog going to the vet, man. It's little tricycle, it's little backpedaling, it's diving under the desk. It's doing anything except this direct penetrating looking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once you've had enough, you know, and then to be consistent about it enough, because, you know, the ego like backs off. That's been good to see for a while, but, you know, I'm done.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
True.
interesting. Well, I'm really thankful for both of you sharing so much, and I'd like to schedule another time for us to jump on. Maybe we'd get some others to jump on who have questions or want to experience it. I'm open. So much
Okay.
love, and I thank you for your wisdom for how we do. How would this be shared and extended? Maybe in the prison, Andy.
Yeah, that'd be
Well,
great.
I tell you what, working with a lot of them, sometimes they're done with their way.
Yes,
Mhm.
And, you
absolutely.
know, it's obvious to them that most of them, not all, but most of them, that there's a real problem, especially at about the 15 years in point, when they've been in about 15 years. That's why I love working with the lifers, you know, because they were willing to say, okay, my way is really not working,
Mhm.
you know, but I don't want to be a life in prison to my own orchestration anymore of, you know, we're putting ourselves in prison until we see that there's no way out. That's what I
Yeah.
realized. So
Mm,
thank you very much
Yeah.
for jumping on. Any closing thought before we go?
mm. No, just so grateful to be doing this and kind of joining with both you. It's been really fun for me, so thank you.
The same here. Thank you. Thank you. I really love this dancing in the light, so to speak. Yep. It was great to meet you, Andy.
Oh, likewise, Kathleen.
Mm.
Yeah, we'll see each other, I'm sure,
Yep.
many times to come.
Yes. Yes.
Mm,
Here, for sure.
Thank you both for your
And
devotion to truth.
thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.